I'm matched with a goddess on Tantan, and within less than 2 hours of chatting, she asked me to meet her at a hotel. What I never expected was that the person who appeared at the hotel entrance turned out to be my wife. 01 around midnight. I had just finished showering and was lying in bed, idly scrolling through my phone to unwind. A couple of days earlier, I'd seen a colleague hook up with a great girl on Tantan, so out of curiosity, I downloaded the app too. I figured I'd see if I could stumble upon my own little adventure at this late hour. After registering my details, I started swiping left and right. Since I was new to the app, I wasn't very skilled yet. I just kept swiping on anyone who looked attractive or was nearby. Within about 3 minutes, my inbox was flooded with messages from women. I couldn't help but marvel at how many people were using this app. It made me even more confident that I'd find my dream girl here. I browsed through the profiles of about a dozen women. Their profiles were filled with photos, all of them young, beautiful, and in their early 20s. But after chatting with them for a bit, I noticed something odd. 3 of them had the same IP address, and their conversation styles were eerily similar, almost as if they were the same person. After a few more minutes of chatting, their scripted responses became too ridiculous. So I blocked them and went back to browsing nearby beauties. After a few more minutes of swiping, I was completely captivated by a woman around my age. Her profile was filled with sultry, seductive photos that exuded charm and allure, drawing me in completely. Many of her cosplay outfits were especially striking, leaving me utterly mesmerized. Her stunning figure could bring any character to life, and she even captured their essence flawlessly. My eyes and my heart were completely ensnared. Unable to look away. The only downside, none of her photos showed her face. Even full body shots were carefully framed to hide it. It was a small disappointment, but it also added an air of mystery, making me even more eager to uncover the truth behind that veil. As we chatted, I realized we had an incredible number of shared interests. It felt like fate. Strangely enough, talking to her kept reminding me of my wife. My wife was also a seasoned cosplayer. We first met at a comic convention. At the time, she was cosplaying a character from a popular anime. Her incredible figure and high accuracy drew a crowd of people wanting photos with her. I was a photographer, and when I saw her god-tier cosplay, I was blown away. I immediately approached her, asking if I could take her picture. When I struck up a conversation, she blushed furiously, acting like a shy little girl. Adorable. I was a little surprised since, for cosplayers, being approached by photographers is pretty normal, but she seemed unusually nervous. After asking, I found out it was her first time at a convention. So, she was still getting used to it. She was naturally introverted and a bit of a homebody, so much so that even playful teasing from her best friend would make her cover her face in embarrassment. Her reactions made me fall for her. After the shoot, I asked for her contact info and told her she could reach out anytime for free photos. She hesitated, but eventually exchanged details with me. Over time, I won her heart, and with our friends' blessings, we eventually got married. After marriage, she rarely wore cosplay outfits around me, but with her innocent face and alluring figure, I could never resist her. Honestly, with a wife like that at home, what man could hold back from fulfilling his marital duties? Just then, a notification from my phone snapped me out of my memories. It was a message from that woman, and after reading it, I was shocked. 02, she asked me to come out and meet her. I glanced at the time. It was almost 1 a.m. What kind of outing was this at such an hour? Just as I was about to refuse, she sent another photo along with a message. Her, hey, big bro, I'm so bored all alone. Come keep me company for a bit. Okay, pretty please. The photo showed a hotel room number. Seeing this, I grew even more hesitant and uneasy. A woman I'd known for less than an hour was inviting me to a hotel. It sounded too absurd. Was this some kind of setup or scam? I paced back and forth in my room, torn between going or not. Maybe because I hadn't replied. She got annoyed and sent another message. Her, are you scared I'll eat you or something? Too afraid to come. She was being this obvious if I still didn't go. I looked like a coward. Besides, wasn't the whole point of being on this app to find some fun? Now that it was practically handed to me, was I really going to let it slip away? Grabbing my jacket, I headed straight downstairs and sent her a reply. Me, who's scared? Wait for me. I got into a taxi and rushed to the hotel. As I got closer, my excitement faded, replaced by caution. I told the driver to stop about 100 meters from the hotel and walk the rest of the way. There were too many stories about people getting scammed on these apps. I had to be careful. I sent her a message. I'm here. Where are you? She replied instantly. I'm downstairs at the hotel. Where are you? I looked toward the hotel entrance and saw a woman in cosplay outfit glancing around. Even from a distance, her figure was captivating. As I got closer, my steps slowed. Maybe it was just my imagination, but something about her silhouette felt familiar. Even her body shape seemed like I'd seen it before. When I finally reached the entrance and saw her face, my mind went completely blank. My eyes widened in disbelief. The next second, I ducked behind the hotel wall, crouched down, and covered my mouth, not daring to make a sound. At that moment, shock and confusion overwhelmed me. The woman who had invited me out, the so-called goddess, was none other than my wife of 3 years. This was beyond ridiculous. Just then, My phone buzzed with another message. I checked it. It was from the woman on Tantan. My wife. Where the hell are you? I've been waiting for a whole minute. Are you coming or not? How could I possibly reply now? I stayed crouched behind the wall, watching the situation unfold. Honestly, my mind was a mess. Why was my wife here? And why was she even on this app? Everyone knew Tantan was basically a hookup platform for strangers. I quickly dismissed the thought, telling myself there was no way my wife could be that kind of person. How could she have downloaded this app, let alone arranged to meet a stranger for a hookup? But the messages on my phone and the sight of my wife downstairs were undeniable proof, slapping me in the face. For 3 years, my sweet, innocent wife had been nothing but an act. Was this her true self? The thought made me so angry, I punched the wall. Rage surged through me. I wanted to storm out there and confront her in front of everyone, but I couldn't. My rational side told me that if I confronted her now, I'd never get the answers I wanted. Just as I was at a loss, another person walked out of the hotel. When I saw who it was, my mind short-circuited again. 03, this person was also in a cosplay outfit, but I recognized her instantly. Li Ting. She was my wife's best friend. Li Ting. In that moment, I froze in place. Why is Li Ting here too? Just as I was racking my brain, I suddenly heard the two of them talking. Li Ting asked, "Hey, hasn't the guy you invited shown up yet? It's been so long." My wife's voice was clearly irritated. He said he's already here, but I waited downstairs for ages and didn't see a soul. Who knows if he even came? What a coward. I'm so pissed. Wasted all that time for nothing. Li Ting laughed and said, "No worries. The guy I invited is already in the room. How about the three of us have some fun together tonight?" My wife looked at Li Ting, surprised. "Is it that hot guy from the gym you mentioned before? You actually got him. His body is insane." I could clearly hear a hint of anticipation in my wife's voice. She lowered her head and said, "Would it be weird if I joined?" "Come on." "Of course not." Li Ting grabbed my wife's hand and pulled her inside, saying as they walked, "Don't keep him waiting too long." Hearing this from behind the wall, I felt like the sky had collapsed. My body went limp, as if all my strength had been drained, and I slumped to the ground, my face twisted with fury. Just then, my wife sent me another message on Tandan. "You pathetic loser. Too scared to even come out and play. Go die." I was stunned. Was this really my wife? The same pure, gentle, and shy woman from home. The one who couldn't even talk to strangers and never cursed, no matter how angry she was. I couldn't believe it. I raised my hand and slapped myself hard across the face. It hurt. I wasn't dreaming. This was all real. The same wife who was too embarrassed to wear cosplay outfits during intimacy at home was now booking hotel rooms with strangers. And from what I'd just heard, she and Li Ting were planning to share a man together. No wonder she'd looked so happy and excited lately whenever she said she was going to Li Ting's place. They've been planning this little party all along. How heartless. I trembled with rage, my teeth grinding so hard I thought they might shatter. I wanted nothing more than to rush into a store, buy a knife, and storm into that room to stab them all to death. I glared up at the hotel, at the lit window where my wife was probably having the time of her life with her best friend and that man. I wanted to charge upstairs, but I held back. Since it had already happened, I would make them pay for what they'd done with actions, not impulsive rage. Early the next morning, my wife came back from a jog outside, dressed in workout clothes, suppressing the fury in my heart. I forced a smile. "Hey, honey, you're back. Tired?" She shook her head. "Not at all. Husband, what's wrong? You don't seem happy." She came over to me, her dimples and youthful face radiating girlish charm. I hadn't expected my acting to be so poor that she'd notice something was off right away, but it was impossible to fully contain my anger, especially after what I'd witnessed last night. "Oh, it's nothing. The company's sending me out for a location shoot. You know how much I hate these business trips, exhausting and no proper rest." I sighed, feigning frustration. How many days will you be gone?" "About a week." She threw her arms around me. "Husband, you just got back from a trip, and now we have to be apart again. I don't want you to go so far away." But beneath her disappointed expression, I caught a flicker of relief. I sneered inwardly. "Cut the act. You're thrilled I'm leaving. After all, with me gone, she'd have even more freedom to meet up with her best friend and their little playdates. Now, everything about her disgusted me. In the past, if she'd acted this clingy, I would have comforted her with genuine concern. But now, it just made me sick. I smiled and said, "This time it's for a big influencer, taking photos and promotional videos. I can't really turn it down. You'll be home alone. So take good care of yourself." My wife nodded obediently, even clinging to me reluctantly. I felt sick to my stomach, wanting nothing more than to shove her away. But I couldn't. I had to endure it. Only by finding the evidence could I make her pay a terrible price, make her regret everything. "Your wife is so timid and socially awkward, yet she could actually do something this disgusting," I said with a face full of disbelief. How could what I saw with my own eyes be fake? She always seemed so well-behaved, even in our gatherings. She'd sit quietly beside you, too shy to even turn the lazy Susan for food. Who'd have thought she'd be so wild behind closed doors, playing around like this? My childhood friend handed me a cigarette, clearly shocked by the whole thing. I took the cigarette and lit it. I never expected her to be this kind of person either. Back when we first got married. You guys all said I must have had ancestors smiling down on me to marry such a beautiful, sensible woman, especially Fatty. Dude's obsessed with anime and always dreamed of finding a girlfriend like my wife who's in a cosplay. Now that I think about it, it's just laughable. I took a deep drag, memories flashing through my mind. Then, I briefly explained a revenge plan I'd come up with over the past few days. My friend widened his eyes after hearing it. Isn't that a bit too harsh? I kept a cold expression. Harsh. She should have known the consequences the moment she did those things. Every single one of them, including Lu Ting. I won't let any of them off. I stared intently at my phone's lock screen, a photo I'd taken of my wife under cherry blossoms. Just wait. I'll make sure every last one of you pays for this. That afternoon, my friend and I went to the electronics market to buy the cameras and recording equipment we needed. By evening, we were parked across the street from the hotel, staking it out from 9 o'clock. But even by 2 in the morning, there was no sign of my wife or her best friend. Maybe they changed locations. My friend yawned in the car, exhausted from the long wait. Probably not. This place is pretty far from where I live, but it's close to my wife's best friend's place, more convenient for them. Truthfully, I wasn't entirely sure, but my gut told me it had to be this hotel. After another 5 minutes of waiting, four figures suddenly appeared in the distance. As they got closer, I recognized their faces. Just as I guessed, it was my wife, her best friend Lu Ting, and 2 unfamiliar men. My wife walked arm in arm with one man up front, while Lu Ting clung to the other man behind them. I watched until all 4 disappeared into the hotel. Since I didn't know which rooms they'd take, my friend and I planted hidden cameras on every floor to confirm their locations. I checked the surveillance feed on my tablet. First, my wife and one man appeared on screen, followed by Lu Ting and the other man. Even before they reached their rooms, it was obvious they couldn't wait. By the time they reached the 3rd floor hallway, my wife and Lu Ting's hair was already disheveled, their collars loosened. On the screen, my wife and her man entered room 306, while Lu Ting and hers went into room 307. As the doors closed, I looked away from the tablet. Now, there was just one problem left. We knew what my wife and the others were doing inside those rooms, but we had no way to get proof. I took a sharp drag of my cigarette and strode across the street toward the hotel. Hello, I'm a friend of the group that just checked in. Which rooms did they take? After saying this, I gave the front desk my wife's name and ID number to verify my identity. The receptionist glanced at me, then checked the records under her breath. Kids these days really know how to have fun. She told me rooms 306 and 307, same as what I'd seen on the feed. Thanks. By the way, do they come here often? At that, the receptionist gave me a puzzled look. I quickly pulled out 500 yuan from the counter and handed it to the receptionist. She immediately understood, took the stack of cash from me, and tucked it into her clothes. After glancing around to make sure no one was nearby, she leaned in and whispered, "Those 2 girls come here almost 4 or 5 times a week. They used to switch rooms, but lately, they've been using these 2 rooms every time. And the men they bring are always different. They're really wild. Who knows whose wife she is? TSK. I asked for the receptionist's number and told her to let me know if those 2 rooms became available the next day. Back in the car, my childhood friend was already asleep in the passenger seat. I drove us back to his place. Only when we arrived downstairs did I wake him up. You got handled, he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. I smirked. Yeah, everything's set. Now I just need to rest up. Tomorrow, we'll go install the cameras. The receptionist's word about them coming 4 or 5 times a week made my chest tighten with anger. My wife had indeed been visiting her best friend more frequently lately, 3 or 4 times a week, but that meant there were nights she must have slipped out while I was sound asleep to sleep with someone else. And I had no idea. The next afternoon, the hotel receptionist called to say the rooms were vacant. My friend and I immediately grabbed our equipment and headed out. I was going to see exactly what my wife and her friend were up to. At the hotel, we booked 2 hourly rooms, 306 and 307, the ones that had just been vacated. After setting up the cameras and recording devices, we double-checked the feeds and audio to make sure everything was working before heading home. Now, all we had to do was wait for my wife and her friend to appear on the surveillance. These cameras had cost me a fortune. They had infrared sensors that would alert my phone the moment someone entered the room. I assumed nothing would happen until late at night. So, I suggested grabbing a late-night snack with my friend. But halfway through our meal, my phone buzzed with the infrared alert. I checked the time, only 11 p.m. I told my friend to pack up the food while I rushed back to monitor the feed. Luckily, the snack shop was just downstairs from his place, saving me time. Back in the room, I immediately pulled out my laptop and opened the surveillance and audio feeds, ready to see what they've been doing all these months. Inside the room, only my wife and her best friend, Lu Ting, were sitting on the bed, each holding a large bag and a takeout container. What's in your bag? You're being so secretive. Won't even let me see. My wife said, eyeing Lu Ting's bag and reaching for it. Lu Ting playfully shielded it, grinning. You really want to see? Just one look? My wife coaxed, pouting. Fine, just one. Lu Ting slowly brought the bag closer and opened it. from a surveillance feed. I strained to see what was inside, but since the camera wasn't mounted on the ceiling, I couldn't make it out. My wife peeked inside, and her eyes instantly lit up with excitement and anticipation. 06. The stuff we ordered arrived. No wonder you took so long this afternoon. You were picking up these treasures. My wife eagerly reached into the bag and pulled something out. This time, I saw it clearly. It was a toy. The kind specifically for women. What's wrong? Are you embarrassed now? My wife smirked, holding the toy and giving Lu Ting a teasing look. Watching my wife's exhilarated expression on the screen, I was furious. I had bought her a few toys like that before. Back then, she had blushed and only used them once before refusing to let me bring them out again. She always insisted on turning off the lights whenever we were intimate. Every time I looked at my wife's blushing face in my arms, I knew she was shy. But now, watching her playfully fooling around with her best friend on the screen, she felt like a stranger to me. My chest tightened with suffocating anger. Stop it. Stop it. I admit I was wrong. Okay. Lu Ting giggled as she surrendered. Good that you know you're wrong now. Let's see if you dare hide things from me again. Seeing Lu Ting's apology, my wife finally flashed a satisfied smile. By the way, hasn't your husband contacted you these past 2 days? Lu Ting adjusted the items in her backpack. Nope, probably busy with work. Forget about him. I never knew having fun like this could be so thrilling. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have realized how boring my life was before. My wife's voice was brimming with joy. You absolutely can't let your husband find out about this, or he'd kill me. Turning a good girl like you into this, he'd never let me off the hook. He has no right to control me. He's been buried in work lately, barely spending any time with me. Am I not even allowed to go out and have fun? My wife's face twisted with resentment, as if I had wronged her in countless ways. Hearing her words, I felt nothing but sorrow. How could she commit such shameless acts without an ounce of remorse? Did I even exist in her heart anymore? For a moment, our 3 years of marriage felt like a cruel joke. My childhood friend, who had been eating barbecue, set it down and patted my shoulder after hearing my wife's words through the surveillance feed. Don't worry, man. I'm here. Whatever you decide to do next, I've got your back. I nodded, but my heart was ice cold. After marriage, I had given everything to this family. Whatever my wife wanted, I bought for her without hesitation. Yet, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that my devotion would be repaid with her utter lack of understanding, let alone her ability to justify her actions so shamelessly. I turned to my friend. Did you find the people I asked you to contact? All set. They'll be here first thing tomorrow. My eyes locked onto the 2 women on the screen. Tomorrow would be the day they paid the price. 07. At 2 a.m. The next day, as expected, my wife and her best friend returned, each with a man in tow. All 4 of them had flushed faces and unsteady steps, clearly having had a few drinks. Through the surveillance feed, I watched my wife swaying in the arms of a stranger, her body pressed tightly against his. The man's hand wandered shamelessly around her waist, and she only laughed, leaning into him. The moment they entered the room, they clung to each other, stumbling toward the bed in a frenzy. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. I shut the laptop and stormed to the balcony, letting the cold wind numb my fury. Even though I knew what was coming, seeing it with my own eyes still sent me spiraling. My heart felt like it was being carved apart with a knife. Even with the screen off, the disgusting sounds from the hidden microphone filled my ears, stoking the flames of my rage. Seeing my distress, my friend quickly turned off the audio and handed me a file. Inside were the profiles of 2 individuals, both HIV positive, their symptoms still subtle enough to go unnoticed by most. Taking a deep breath, I glanced at my friend. Make the arrangements. He nodded, pulling out his phone before stepping away. Those 2 would arrive tomorrow. Soon, they'd connect with my wife and her best friend through Tinder, ensuring their complete ruin. I could already picture the sheer horror on their faces when they found out they had contracted AIDS. The thought alone sent a rush of satisfaction through me, because what I wanted most was to see them utterly broken and despairing. After saving the recorded footage, I retreated to the guest room, but no matter how I tossed and turned, sleep refused to come. My mind was constantly assaulted by memories of when I first met my wife and everything I had witnessed tonight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw images of her lying in a hotel bed with other men. By morning, I was exhausted, my eyes bloodshot, yet I felt no trace of drowsiness. The 2 HIV-positive individuals we had hired, we didn't meet them in person. Instead, we communicated through transfers and messaging. After all, we had their personal information, so there was no fear of them taking the money and running. Besides, this was practically a dream job for them. They were especially eager. It was both laughable and ironic. Who would have thought someone would pay others to sleep with their own wife? When the time felt right, I gave them a signal to begin their operation. From the chat logs they sent back, they were getting along swimmingly with my wife and Lu Ting. Naturally, with me pulling the strings behind the scenes and knowing my wife's preferences inside out, it was easy for them to win her over quickly. Soon, they arranged to meet at a hotel at 10 p.m., and the room number they sent was the one we had already bugged with cameras. After ensuring the 2 HIV-positive men arrived at the hotel, my childhood friend and I settled in to monitor the feed. Within minutes, they appeared on screen. The footage was almost a replay of yesterday's events, except with slight variations. By the early hours, all four had migrated to the same room. I smirked coldly. Go ahead. Play all you want. The wilder you get, the higher the chance of infection. Over the next few days, I instructed the 2 men to keep meeting up with my wife and Lu Ting. And, unsurprisingly, my wife and her friend thoroughly enjoyed their company. After all, these 2 had contracted HIV precisely because of their reckless lifestyles. They knew how to bring fresh excitement to the table. That was the main reason they could keep my wife and her best friend hooked. Not to mention, both men were fairly good looking. Time flew by. Glancing at the date, I realized it was time for me to return. The week was up. Now, it was time for my wife and her best friend to taste suffering. 08. The moment I got home and set my luggage down, my wife coincidentally walked in. Honey, you're finally back. I miss you so much. The second she saw me, she rushed over. I dodged her embrace. Hold on. Let me shower and change first. I'm filthy from the trip. Without giving her a chance to react, I bolted into the bathroom. Who in their right mind would dare touch her now? I wasn't about to risk catching anything. For the next few days, I had to tread carefully. I avoided excessive contact with my wife. After all, I still wasn't sure whether she had contracted HIV. Once I was cleaned up, I glanced at my wife lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Sweetheart, come to check up with me. I've been feeling a bit off lately. Keep me company to the hospital. Might as well get yourself checked too. She pouted, about to refuse, but seeing how genuinely unwell I looked, she reluctantly agreed. At the hospital, I registered both of us. After a morning of tests, we finally finished now. All that was left was to wait for the afternoon results. I could hardly contain my anticipation. I couldn't wait to see the agony on my wife's face. If she hadn't been infected, I'd have had to trouble those 2 HIV-positive men again, and that would have been a hassle. That was precisely why I'd made sure they spent extra time with my wife and her friend these past few days. In the afternoon, we returned to collect the reports, but my wife was called aside by a nurse. She needed to speak privately with the doctor. I knew then success was almost certain. Sure enough, when she returned after the consultation, her face was ashen, though inwardly elated. I forced a concerned, panicked expression and rushed to her side. What's wrong? I asked. Oh, it's nothing. I just haven't been resting well lately. The doctor said my health isn't great right now and told me to go home. Rest properly and exercise more. My wife's words were laced with panic she couldn't hide, her voice trembling. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she pulled out her phone. Honey, I need to make a quick call. I'll be right back. She rushed out of the hospital in a fluster. I knew exactly who she was calling, her so-called best friend, the one who'd been taking her out to have fun. I pretended not to see through her lies and calmly took her home for dinner. But until bedtime, she remained listless, as if her soul had been drained. That night, my wife received a phone call. After hanging up, she suddenly perked up, which took me by surprise. Had she actually been telling the truth earlier? Was she really not infected? But the moment I saw her appear before me in that revealing cosplay outfit, trying to climb onto me, I understood everything. That call was most likely from Lu Ting. She wanted my wife to infect me with HIV too, then pin all the blame on me. That bitch. Of course, I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. I made an excuse. Too tired, not feeling well, and firmly rejected her advances. Eventually, she gave up, probably thinking there'd be plenty of chances later. Too bad for her, she was wrong. The next day, my wife called her best friend again. When she answered, she gasped. What? Even you? The rest was whispered, but I knew her friend had been infected too. With this information, I realized it was time to give my wife and her best friend a little push, right off a cliff. 09. That same day, I anonymously sent the videos I'd recorded over the past few days to my mother-in-law and my wife's friends. Oh, right, and her dear best friend. I certainly hadn't forgotten her. I even sent those videos to people at her friend's company, starting with a small group chat. I was sure they'd spread quickly. After all, nothing's more terrifying than public opinion. I couldn't reach her friend's family, but I had my wife's phone. Sure enough, they were such close friends. She had all their family's numbers. I didn't mind sharing the videos with a few more people. I left home that day. I couldn't stand being in the same room as my wife anymore. Every time I looked at her, all I could see were those recordings. That night, she called me repeatedly, but I ignored everyone. I didn't want to waste any more time on her. Divorce paperwork and lawsuits were enough of a hassle. The next day, I brought the divorce papers to her. The moment I walked in, I saw her parents in the room. The kind of people who'd raise such a well-behaved, sensible daughter were naturally reasonable. They didn't beg me to forgive her, just kept apologizing. I didn't want to take my anger out on them. I tossed the divorce papers in front of my wife. Seeing her haggard face, some of the bitterness in my heart eased. Sign it. There's no point dragging this out. When she saw the coldness in my eyes, she clung to me, sobbing. Honey, I was wrong before. I was just fooling around. Please, don't divorce me. For the sake of all our years together. Don't leave me. Okay. I stood there, unmoving, debating whether to reveal her HIV status in front of her parents. But my wife misunderstood my silence. She thought I was still the same husband who'd spoil her forever just because she whined a little. Honey, you can't bear to do this, right? I truly know I was wrong. From now on, I promise I won't wear those outfits outside, only for you to see. Okay, please, just forgive me this once. Okay. Tears streamed down my wife's face as memories of the past flashed through my mind. You have HIV, don't you? I looked at her, my calm words sending a shock through everyone present, especially my wife. Deep fear and panic flooded her eyes. Her earlier sobs abruptly silenced. How did you know? She stammered, then quickly backtracked. No, I don't. I don't have HIV. Stop pretending. Your dear best friend has it too, doesn't she? That day I took you for a checkup was to confirm whether you'd caught it. I stared coldly at my ashen-faced wife and continued. I thought I treated you well enough, since you want me to remember our years together. Fine, then answer me. When you were with those random men, did you ever think of me? Or were you only chasing your cheap thrills? I worked day and night to give you a better life. Without my salary, do you think you could have afforded all those cosplay outfits? And yet, all you did was complain that I only cared about work and never spent time with you. Now you've caught this disease and still expect me to support you for life. Dream on. I pointed at the divorce papers. So stop wasting time. Sign it now. My tone grew increasingly impatient. My wife glanced at my parents behind me, her eyes filled with despair. Trembling, she picked up the pen and signed her name. I took the papers and turned to leave. At the door, I looked back at her. You're leaving with nothing. No objections, right? My gaze shifted between her parents. Speechless, and my wife, now collapsed on the floor. Silence means consent. You have 3 days to get out of my house. From now on, whether you live or die, it's none of my business. With that, I slammed the door shut. Under the harsh sunlight above, I smiled brightly. I knew a brand new life was waiting for me.